It's Thursday, July 23rd, 2020. Summer is scooting on by, as it always does, and this is your Daily Detroit. I'm Sven Gustafson.
And I'm Jer Stays, and on today's show, we bring you up to speed on the latest coronavirus news and numbers from the state, some development and demolition news from the city of Detroit, and Fiat Chrysler is expanding its partnership with Waymo to develop self-driving cars and commercial delivery vans.
Then later on, Fletcher Sharpe joins us to talk about Detroit City FC, the Lions, and some news about upcoming Pistons jerseys that will have diehard fans of the old Bad Boys era team scratching their heads. That's all coming up after we bend your ear about becoming a member of Daily Detroit on our Patreon page. Each day, we bring you valuable information, insights, and voices about the big stories shaping our region. If you find it informative, illuminating, or even entertaining, help support our work with whatever you're able to contribute, and in response, we'll send you stickers and other swag. Keep pushing Detroit's conversation forward by finding the orange Patreon button underneath the player on our homepage at dailydetroit.com, and thank you.
Michigan saw 523 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 on Wednesday, with 6 deaths. That brings the state totals to more than 75,200 cases and 6,100 deaths. After nearly 600 new cases on Tuesday, state officials are worried about the growing number of cases in people under the age of 50. They make up nearly 60% of the new cases reported since April 20th, and the concern is that people that are younger are thinking they're immune to the effects of the virus, and, well, that's just not the case. On the good side, there is so far a lower death rate than earlier in the pandemic, and the statewide transmission rate, or RT level, as reported by RT.live, is hovering around 1.03. That's much lower than earlier in the pandemic, and very close to that magic line of 1, where if we can get below that, we can actually start to slow the spread of the virus.
Okay, Jer, we have some news to catch up on in the city of Detroit. Let's start with really an extraordinary statement released by Mayor Mike Duggan and Detroit Police Chief James Craig about some news about federal troops.
Yeah, so let's quickly reset from when we last talked about this, with President Trump threatening that he is going to send federal agents to clean up Democrat-led cities, including Detroit. In response, the mayor and police chief released a strong statement basically saying, "We don't need this." It's ignited a firestorm on our Facebook page if you want to go check the full thing out. It was followed up by comments from Mayor Duggan, who said that there's no indication from officials that Department of Homeland Security agents are coming here.
I talked to a number of federal officials yesterday, as did Chief Craig, and we are getting no indication there will be any Department of Homeland Security people coming to the city of Detroit. And certainly the chief and I have made it very clear that sending in folks from the Department of Homeland Security to deal with protesters, we did not even accept the National Guard at the height of the protest. We made a decision early on that the bond between the Detroit Police Department and this community was strong enough that we could handle the protests ourselves. And I think so far, we get up every day and we work it hard. We haven't had any stores looted. We haven't had any fires started. We're continuing to see protests that are predominantly outside the city. And we are continuing to see Detroiters stand up in a very vocal way, saying you're not going to tear up our town. That's been our strategy, and we're going to stick with that strategy. Now, if you want to talk about extra gun prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office or ATF taking illegal guns off the street, we would support that kind of help. But we've made it very clear that Department of Homeland Security people coming to town to deal with the protesters is not going to be acceptable, and my indications are we do not expect to see that here in Detroit.
Rumors were spreading that new federal agents had already arrived, thanks to a video shared by activist group Detroit Will Breathe. We followed up on it, and the video, recorded near 7 Mile and Evergreen, turned out to be of Drug Enforcement Agency personnel who were serving a warrant unrelated to protesters. Most of the personnel in Portland was from the Department of Homeland Security. A new development Wednesday is that President Trump has extended an initiative into cities and given it a name, organizing it under Operation Legend, focus on jailing and imprisoning those who have committed federal crimes with a focus on violent crimes. There has been action in Kansas City and Albuquerque, with agents from a number of agencies also on their way to Chicago. and the president promised it would go to other cities. Trump also announced more than $60 million for police officers in target cities, with a focus on more funding for the police as opposed to less.
Jer, I saw some of the reactions from listeners or fans, whatever, on our Facebook page. This matter of sending in federal agents to cities to quell protests. Again, these are unidentified federal agents. They don't have any names. There's no badging, indicating where they're from. They've been arresting protesters and taking them away in unmarked cars. Very, very controversial here. Some people in support, but some people saying, well, if these cities could take care of their own business, that we wouldn't need to do this. It's clear to me, Jer, and as it's been clear throughout this whole thing, that there is a certain subset of the population that is just clearly very uncomfortable with protests of any kind, despite the fact that they are enshrined as a right in the First Amendment.
Well, I think they're uncomfortable with protests that they don't agree with.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear. They were totally fine with what happened in Lansing.
Yeah, that's true. With the people who came out protesting the governor's stay-at-home orders and brought guns and flouted social distancing rules and no one wear masks and so forth, right?
Yeah, and I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Like, a lot of the support for the kind of actions that we're talking about here are from folks who don't live in the city. And, this happens on a lot of issues. Having been in the city, lived in the city a while, I have learned that there is kind of this group of people who drank beer here for 2 hours that one time last summer and now has like 2 years full of opinions. When they have no idea what's actually going on here and don't wake up here. Some of them don't even work here. I mean, it's just kind of crazy to me that's the case. Because if any of us were to go into any other city and be like, well, you all are animals and blah, 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 they'd rightly be angry. And frankly, as a city resident, it's hard not to be angry about that kind of stuff. And when we're talking about these crackdowns and all of this other kind of stuff, I'm just skeptical that it's going to work because we've tried these kind of tactics before. They generally don't have long-term impact, except for just incarcerating a bunch of people and not fixing the underlying issues of injustice and poverty and inequity and the institutional racism in our country. But, usually the answer to this kind of stuff historically in America has been lock them up.
All right. Meanwhile, Mayor Duggan, switching topics here, Mayor Duggan got what he wanted with his blight proposal from the city council. Bring us up to speed there.
Yes, he did. I guess 2 times is a charm. It was a close vote, but Proposal N, something we talked about on a previous show, providing $250 million in funds to demolish 14,000 homes and rehab about 8,000 homes, passed city council. The swing votes came when a significant portion of the money was reprogrammed for rehabilitation instead of demolition. We went into this in detail before, but there are set-asides for Detroit-based companies and resident workers. So, the plan is that 51% of the hours is done by Detroit residents. There's a preference towards Detroit-based companies. This is pretty standard. It's something that it's really a goal to shoot for. This will go on the November ballot for voters in the city of Detroit to decide on.
All right, very interesting. There's also been ground broken on a new jobs training center as well.
Yes, the Union Michigan Statewide Carpenters and Millwrights Joint Apprenticeship and Training Fund, if that's a mouthful if I ever had one, got to work Wednesday on building a 150,000 square foot training facility on 7 acres in the Oakman Boulevard area on Detroit's west side. It'll bring administrative and training operations for the union under one big roof. Right now, they're spread across facilities in Warren, Ferndale, Livonia, and an administrative office in the Renaissance Center, which I've happened to visit before. Officials say that this new facility will be ready in about a year.
All right. Well, meanwhile, it seems like despite the pandemic, we're still seeing some development activity, real estate development activity in downtown Detroit.
Crane's first reports that there is a new 350-unit, 3-building apartment complex that's going to go up at Mack and Woodward across from the Whole Foods there. It's by Farmington Hills-based developer Jonathan Holtzman, and it's going to be called City Club Midtown. The rendering is colorful, Sven, and I will put a link in the show notes so you can see the rest of the story and see this rendering. It's definitely something. We covered a previous project back in the early days of this podcast where this same developer, during an interview, hyped up sexy bathrooms. Apparently, that's a really big thing. That was also branded City Club, and that is going up in the place of the old Statler Hotel right off of Grand Circus Park. That sexy bathroom episode is one of our most downloaded because apparently that's something that people like. And can I mention, Sven?
It turned people on, apparently.
Apparently. Can I mention too, Sven? I don't know. Maybe this dates me and ages me, but whenever I hear City Club, I don't think apartments, but I think about like dancing and drinking in a dark and weird club in the basement of the Leland Hotel.
Well, anyway, I saw the renderings of this proposed Midtown project. It's a nice looking building, I would say. Very colorful. I described it as kind of rainbowy.
Oh my God, it's full on double rainbow all the way across the sky. Oh my God.
Fiat Chrysler and Waymo, the self-driving unit of Google's parent company Alphabet, are expanding their existing partnership to develop autonomous delivery vehicles and passenger cars. The two companies say they'll serve as each other's exclusive partners in the programs. FCA will supply Ram ProMaster cargo vans to be retrofitted with Waymo's self-driving technology for use by fleets, including Waymo Via, the company's delivery service. Waymo, under the deal, also becomes Fiat Chrysler's exclusive supplier of autonomous vehicle technology for its various passenger vehicle brands. The two companies are hoping to capitalize on the explosive growth of home delivery. There's no timeline for any of these developments. FCA and Waymo are targeting level 4 autonomy, which is defined as fully automated driving, though the driver can assume control of the vehicle at any time. Most experts believe the technology is still years away and faces significant obstacles, though Waymo is widely considered the leader in the field. FCA and Waymo have been working together since 2016, testing Chrysler Pacifica hybrid minivans fitted with Waymo's hardware and systems. Waymo last year said it planned to build a factory in Southeast Michigan to build self-driving cars, supported by an $8 million grant from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation.
So, Sven, I wanted to ask you, hearing this story, I know how many of our listeners just love Tesla and Tesla vehicles, their autonomous systems, but I also see a lot of skepticism amongst the professional crowd who actually works in the industry. Where is this project in comparison to what Tesla's doing? Like, I feel like there's a large disconnect here between, because this says, it's going to be a while till we get there. And then you've got Elon Musk saying, well, this kind of stuff's right around the corner.
Well, I mean, the short answer is I have no idea where it stands in relation to what Tesla is doing. And I think anybody who says differently is lying, because nobody really knows what Tesla is really doing. And I don't think anybody really knows. Experts don't really know what Elon Musk is talking about, frankly. I mean, you mentioned Tesla's autonomous systems. They don't really have autonomous systems. They have something called autopilot, which is maybe, kind of a misnamed, partly autonomous system. I will note that there have been more than one instances in which there have been horrific collisions, I think more than one of which have resulted in the driver death, where the driver has been killed while using the autopilot systems beyond the limits, that it was designed for. I mean, in one case in Florida recently, a man was killed when he was apparently not paying attention and using autopilot, and it failed to see a large semi-truck which had pulled out in the lanes ahead of him. The federal government, the NHTSA, published photos that the car took of this semi-truck clearly pulling out in the lanes ahead of him in the instant before, the Tesla, driving down a highway struck this car and the driver was killed, sheared off the roof. So, there's a lot of criticism that Elon Musk is over-promising. He's saying now that, there's going to be full level 5 autonomous capability in Tesla's cars with no obstacles. I think, I am not an expert in autonomous vehicle technology, but people who follow the stuff think that he's, essentially full of it. I mean, even if he were somehow able to come up with this, this magical technology that makes your Tesla be able to drive anywhere with no intervention from the driver ever needed, which is essentially what he's promising. The federal government still hasn't even cleared this kind of technology for, being able to be used on our public roads. So I'm not really sure what he's talking about. It's, Elon Musk is often one to be full of bluster, frankly. All right, it's time to talk sports ball. There is a little bit of sports ball to discuss despite the world slowing down because of the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, joining us to discuss that is our sports correspondent, Fletcher Sharpe. Fletcher, welcome to Daily Detroit. Good to hear from you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Let's start with Detroit City FC. And first of all, the women's team, which played its first ever match finally this weekend. They traveled to Grand Rapids, where they lost. They dropped their opening game 3-1 to Midwest United FC. Tori Singstock gets the lone City goal. Fletch, what did we learn about the team? What were your thoughts about the game?
Honestly, I'm surprised they got a goal. No slight against them. But the UWSL has had 5 champions while it's been around. And one of them was Midwest United FC in 2017. So they're very good. They're very compact. They played very disciplined. Even watching the game, you could tell which team had already played 3 games, which team was playing their first. Detroit got their goal on a kind of a counterpunch where they got the ball back really quickly, got the ball wide, and then got across into the box. But all 3 of Midwest United's goals were inside of Detroit's box just from mistakes or just tired legs, and they just kept getting stretched out over and over and over. It's encouraging to see that they didn't give up, which is obviously could have been the case when you're not used to losing. But I don't really know what people expected. They'll be better the next time they play them. Yeah, it's the first game, so your ceiling's kind of low.
I was able to watch most of the second half. I didn't see the City goal. City had a hard time keeping possession. They were without the ball most of the rest of the second half, and definitely some defensive sloppiness. The City women's team returns to action this weekend at Keyworth for a 2-day tournament. They're going to host Lansing United and Livonia FC, so hopefully they can get off on a better foot with those games. Meanwhile, Fletcher, interesting story in M Live recently about the Detroit City FC's financial situation. The club having a hard time, obviously no home games that they've been able to play this weekend's games at Keyworth. The stands will be empty. What are you hearing, Fletcher, from the club and the supporters and everything? And do you think they're going to be able to hang on?
A little bit that I can say is I'm not going to say they're going to be fine per se, because losing upwards of 90% of your income is like scary time. That's the time where you start to panic. Even though there is a reason for it, legit reason, we're in the middle of a pandemic, they will be okay. They will bounce back from it. They do have plans in store to try to recoup what they can without trying to gouge people's pockets. I do think it's really encouraging that most of the people who have, as the article said, most of the people who have bought season tickets were like, you know what, keep the money. It's not a big deal. Right. I understand. I'm for the club. I want to help the club. I care about the club. The name on the front, not the name on the back. So if it means that I have to forfeit season tickets for this, okay, I'll happily do it. So that's really encouraging to see that people are doing that. Yeah. I will say, though, and I've seen this mainly as a journalist, but also mainly as someone who's on social media, I have seen some annoying people who've been like, well, can we come to the games now? Can we come to the games now? It's like, I understand, but can we come now? And it's like, well, the governor says you guys can't meet, so the team can't say yes. If they say yes, then they're in big trouble. So you should just assume, no, you can't come, unless there's a big sign that they say you can. Thankfully, though, I know their last game, Midwestern United hosted via a stream. They will be getting back to streaming their games. Not on TV 20 for the first few, obviously, because they're still working some stuff out. They've been going through some difficulties because of COVID and how many people they can have. But they will be back to streaming their games on MyCujo, YouTube, Facebook. But they're going to get back to streaming them. They're going to have their regular broadcasters. They're also going to be bringing on a new sideline reporter to cover the games that are happening that are not DCFC related, but that need to be recorded by them. They're trying to get back to as normal as they can while going through a very unnormal time.
Well, that's good news, Fletch. That's something that a listener, Sheila, actually wrote us in about, asking about how to support the team, how to watch the team. And I think, Fletcher, what we should do is put that information in the show notes for today's show to help Sheila. And I know other people who seem to be looking for information around this.
Oh, I know definitely, because I know the stream against Midwestern, a lot of people were like, well, where's Neil? Where's John? Why don't we have commentary? And it's like, that's not what Detroit's in charge of for this. They're just the away team. That's for Midwest United FC. And like the 3 games I've watched them in the past, they've never had people commenting on their games. So like they just have a stream so you know what's happening.
Yeah, there was no audio at all on my stream.
Well, from what I heard is if you turn it all the way up to like, if you're watching on television, you turn it all the way up to like 60 or something, you can faintly hear people talking. When I saw the video of like the goal scored, there was audio. So apparently like the audio is just being fed through there totally improperly. Because when you watch the highlights of the goals scored, there's like people talking at like regular level.
Well, pivoting from soccer or football to American football, I want to talk about the Lions. A recent ESPN ranking did not show them in good light. Beyond all of the challenges of coronavirus, I mean, is this going to be another tough year for Lions fans?
Yes, but that could really be any year. That's really not reliant to just this year.
We could use this audio in any, just drop it in any year from now, and it'll work.
Well, I mean, hope springs eternal. I mean, after all, I have a friend of mine who is literally the Lions Snuggie Jesus, and he wants to have a good year this year, but doesn't look like it, huh?
No. And if they do have a good year, I'll be pleasantly surprised. I won't, sit here and be like, I want them to be bad. I want them to be terrible. But like, wants and dreams are very much different from like cold hard facts. And cold hard facts are they have a very good quarterback, and that's really it. They have a coach who's geared towards a defensive mind, who's like really not helped their defense much at all. They have no running game. They have a few great receivers, but no offensive line to protect our quarterback to give him time to throw, which has been like a thing you could have said forever. They've never had an offensive line. Barry Sanders, as great as he was, if he had an offensive line, probably would have ran for like 9 million yards in his career, but he had to run backwards so much because he had no one to block for him. These are like issues that like, while we have a new owner, that's great. If these things aren't fixed, it doesn't matter who owns it, because like it's still going to be bad.
So what would be the progress that you would like to see? What would be the 1 or 2 keys you'd like to see improve in this season?
Even if they don't make the playoffs, even if they finish 6-10, 7-9, 8-8, 5-11, that our quarterback is sacked significantly less than he normally is in his career. If we can do that and work with that and maybe get a bit of a running game, I can live with it. Yes, Matthew Stafford's getting older, so yes, you want to try to win more in his older years, but like just protect him. And I remember the record where he finally sat out of the game. He'd played like 200 odd games like in a row playing. I know for a fact he's had a separated shoulder. He's had foot issues. That's not like a badge of honor. That's terrifying. It's because they're not protecting him. So if you can protect the most important player on the team right now, I can live with that, because you can build off an offensive line. You can't build off of hoping that he just consistently outperforms the other team significantly every single year. The one year they made the playoffs at 9-7, like their highest rusher on the team was Theo Reddick at 300 yards. And like, that's very bad. That's insanely bad.
All right, Fletcher, before we let you go, we got to talk Pistons really quick. On Tuesday, the NBA announced that every team was going to be wearing the new Jumpman logo on their alternate jerseys. For those who don't know, the Jumpman is essentially a silhouette based on an iconic photograph of Michael Jordan, who back in the day was one of the most hated foes of the Detroit Pistons. So, Fletcher, your thoughts on the Pistons wearing the Jumpman logo?
I get why they have to. They can't just like not do it, or they can't just cover it up, because like that's very much not allowed. But it's very petty to me, insanely petty, because we all know how Michael Jordan really feels about the Detroit Pistons, mainly about Isaiah Thomas. So to like sit there and say now they all have to wear it, especially them. I'm sure he's sitting up there in his like weird mansion in Charlotte, like grinning as much as he can. It kind of reeks of the NBA Jam situation. The creator of NBA Jam, or one of the producers, was a very big Detroit Pistons fan.
NBA Jam's a famous old video game.
Yep, it's 2-on-2 basketball where basically like you just shoot 3-pointers and dunk on people, and like the ball catches fire randomly sometimes, and sometimes shots are worth like 9 points for some reason. But like it's very fun, but like very, odd. But the guy was a very big fan of the Detroit Pistons. And of course, the Bulls finally beat the Pistons and started like going forward and becoming the dynasty that they are. And the guy did not like how Michael Jordan was treating the Pistons. So he put in a little glitch in there. So when the game was late and the Pistons, someone was playing with the Pistons, someone was playing with the Bulls, all the Bulls players would start missing their shots. No matter what it is, they'd start missing their shots just to make sure that like the Bulls player would lose. And Michael Jordan, as clutch as he is, as he's known for being clutch, he's the GOAT of crunch time, scoring you late buckets, making sure he misses every single bucket he takes, no matter how close or how far it is. He starts missing dunks, layups, jump shots, whatever. So this kind of reeks of like that, where it's like, well, I get the last laugh because you're wearing my logo on your jersey.
It will be a sight to see for sure. No doubt about that. Fletcher Sharpe joins us to talk sports here on Daily Detroit. Fletcher, thanks so much.
Yep.
All right, that's it for today's show. One quick thing before we go. We are up for an award. We need your vote. Our competition includes the Weeds from Vox, the Journal from the Wall Street Journal. And what's this for? It is for the podcast awards for best news and politics podcasts in the country and all the land. So it's a pretty big deal. We'll put a link in the show notes to podcastawards.com. Every little bit counts, and if we can somehow get enough support to get noticed, we're up against these national shows, but maybe we can just get a nomination, Sven. It would be pretty cool.
We're small but mighty.
Yes, we are, and it would be pretty cool for this little band representing the Motor City. With that, I'm Jairus Daves.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. Take care of each other, vote for us, and we'll get through this together.